Well, we're at the CCA workbench for the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques segment of the show. And Dave, 25 years of catching marlin. How do you condense that down into 5 minutes?
Can't do it.
Tough.
Can't do it. But we're going to talk. We can do it about Florida though, because you know, like Liz said, you know, Florida is not the best place in the world to go to catch blue marlins. As a matter of fact, when I was the editor of Marlin Magazine, the best, you know, it's good to be near a good airport so you can fly out of Florida and go to a good place where they have a lot of them. And we still have quite a few here. South Florida, you know, your best bet's probably to make that 60-mile journey over to Bahamas and Bimini and go over there and fish for them. Although, you know, they come up the Gulf Stream, they come through the Straits of Florida in the Gulf Stream. A few of them do. They're straggler fish. They're the same ones that they catch down in the Keys, you know, out of Key West. Not that many of them. Just, you know,
there's not a lot. The guys that run out of our region, the Central East region, you know, the Orlando, Cocoa Beach area, they run 60, 70, 80 miles.
Right.
And they run across them once in a while, but they're not targeting them. They're, once again, they're kind of a bycatch to the
catching tunas, and that's another good place to fish for them on Florida. Probably Jacksonville, St. Augustine area is probably the second best place to fish for them in Florida, because a lot of those fish will come across the Gulf Stream up there on their way to North Carolina, and it seems like they swim across up there.
They get to the west side of the stream.
It's still a long ways out, you know, 60, 70, 80 miles, but they even have a blue marlin club up there in the Jacksonville area.
Gotcha.
But
what do we need to use?
Where Tommy lives in the Panhandle is probably the best, because that's where the continental shelf comes in, real close in the Gulf of Mexico, and the nipples there, and the spur, and a bunch of structure that'll hold the fish. Yeah. Now, what we're using, you know, it depends on where you're at and what you're fishing for. If you're in a tournament or whatnot. The best thing to do, though, in Florida is to start with lures, because you got to cover ground.
Okay.
You know, get a good service like Roths or Hilton's and try to find a good piece of water. Head for that water and put your lures out, because you can go 8 knots with lures.
Temperature breaks.
Correct.
Okay.
Structure that has a current on it. You know, whatever the Roth says, plankton bloom, whatever.
Now, do you like a smaller lure to start with, or do you like a bigger lure to start with?
Well, you know, I'm always for the smaller stuff, because I've fished in some places where they use a lot of great big lures with big hook sets, and you tend to pull the hooks a lot. And a lot of and a lot of the fellas are actually, even in Hawaii and whatnot, they're starting to go down in size on their hook sets to make sure that that hook makes its way into the mouth real good. You know, they're using 10-aughts instead of 12-aughts now a lot of times. So you know, if we're fishing for blue marlins, you probably 10-aught is a good XXX 10-aught is probably a good enough hook to catch any of them.
Gotcha. And so you're coming down to this size lure versus that bigger one.
Yeah, you're still using a big lure, just smaller hooks.
Oh,
now when you're using these little things, you can catch whiteys on them, you know, white marlin in the Gulf, and sometimes, you know, over in South Florida, you get over close to Bahamas in the springtime, you're going to be catching some white marlins too. You can catch them on these. But once you pull your lures and you find a good spot, you're seeing some life, slow down, put your dead baits out, or your dead baits combos, because they have a much better hookup ratio. You're slowing down to work this area, and you don't have to go real fast. If you go real fast with those baits, you'll pull them to pieces and whatnot. Now, if you see a fish eating, like if you see a nice weed line and you see up ahead of you a marlin crashing some dolphin or some hardtails,
knocking one in the air,
whatever, you see a feeding marlin, you know there's a marlin here. That's when you use your live baits. Because you go sit on top of that fish, throw your live baits out. That's the best hookup percentage.
So a bonita, a blackfin, a baby dolphin.
Any tuna is great. A skipjack tuna is the best of all. A skippy, because he glows. He's still alive in a skipjack with all those little.
Now you're not going to rig them on this though. What are you rigging them on?
No, you'll put your live baits on a big circle hook. You'll bridle them through the eyeballs with some nice floss. A floss loop goes through their eyes.
So it'll attach here, and the bait fish will be basically where my hand and arm is.
Yeah, his head will be right here, and that'll be against his forehead.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times, you know, I like to have it like 2 or 3 inches out in front of a bigger bait. The bigger the bait, the further I like to have that hook out in front, because when that fish, it has to swallow it. And a blue marlin can swallow 10% of his weight in one gulp. So a 100-pound blue marlin can eat a 10-pound bait. So when he swallows that circle hook and it's coming out, if the circle hook is out in front of that bait, it'll hit the corner of the jaw before the bait comes all the way out. And that's good, because we don't want him coming to the surface and throwing the bait out before it gets in there.
And real quick, how about line?
Well, we want to use some high vis line, you know, some diamond high catch, high vis. This is the Orange Crush, because we can see it you know, going down from the outriggers.
Keep the line
And we want to
straight.
use some nice hard mono leader, you know, Momoy, nice, really hard leader that doesn't abrade. Now we use like 400 and 500 pound tests, 300 pound tests, not because that's how much we're pulling on, but it's because that's the abrasion. You know, the longer he's on, he has a way to abrade through that leader.
Well, we got to wrap it up, unfortunately. I wish we had another 5 or 10 minutes.